The girl looked up and, to her surprise, a lion cub fell from the sky. She had no idea where he came from, but seeing his pitiful little face, Alma couldn't bear to leave him alone in the dangerous forest. So she took the cub home with her. Just as Alma was about to close the door, a white she-wolf carrying a wolf pup in her mouth suddenly entered and quietly settled into a corner of the room. Alma was bewildered, but she gathered the courage to take a closer look. It turned out she had seen this white wolf before. Not long ago, during a walk through the forest, the wolf had startled her by appearing out of nowhere. But the white wolf hadn't seemed aggressive. She simply looked at her with eyes that seemed to plead for help. It was then that Alma noticed the wolf was tangled in a rope net, unable to move freely. Perhaps it was the scent on Alma's clothes, familiar to the wolf, that made her feel calm instead of threatened. Alma suddenly remembered a video her grandfather had left for her. The animal friend in the footage was this very same white wolf. Realizing her jacket still carried her grandfather's scent, she took it off to help comfort the wolf. Then she used a small knife to cut the net. But the moment the wolf was freed, she turned around and walked away without looking back. Even so, Alma felt happy, because helping the white wolf regain her freedom gave her a sense of joy. Unexpectedly, the white wolf soon returned, this time bringing her pup into Alma's room and refusing to leave. Alma was a bit annoyed. Her peaceful home had suddenly turned into a zoo. She only wanted to practice piano quietly and prepare for her exam. But the arrival of these animals left her feeling overwhelmed. She wanted to call the police, but there was no signal on her phone. Just then, 2 patrol officers from the Wildlife Protection Agency stopped by to ask about the lion cub. It turned out the cub's mother had been shot by hunters, and the little lion had been sold to a circus for a high price. But during transport, the plane crashed. By pure luck, the lion cub landed in a tree. After a brief struggle, he fell into a bird's nest but was chased away by a diving eagle, and by a twist of fate, he ended up falling into Alma's arms. Initially, Alma wanted to tell the truth and return the cub, but when she learned he was destined for a circus, she immediately changed her mind and decided to hide him. Alma had lost her parents when she was young, and just a few days ago, her beloved grandfather had also passed away. No one understood the pain of losing family better than she did. When she got home, she saw the white wolf nursing her pup. At that moment, the lion cub casually approached. Alma was nervous, fearing the white wolf might reject the cub. To her surprise, the little lion crawled up to the mother wolf and began to nurse alongside the wolf pup. The white wolf did not stop him. Perhaps, in her eyes, the lion cub was just another baby in need. Seeing this touching moment, Alma was deeply moved and made the decision to adopt them both. Over the following days, the 2 little ones became best friends. They played and tumbled around the house without a care in the world. The white wolf returned every day to feed them on time. Seeing such a beautiful scene, Alma took out her phone and recorded every moment. As time passed, the 2 cubs grew even fonder of her and followed her everywhere. When Alma practiced the piano, they would go out and play quietly. But the moment she stopped, they became her little shadows, sticking to her wherever she went. Sometimes they slept together in a small cabin deep in the forest or splashed in the water. In the afternoons, they sat by the shore and watched the sunset. And when night fell, they curled up next to Alma and drifted into a peaceful sleep. A few days later, Alma's long-awaited piano exam finally arrived. She told the little ones to stay home and be good, warned them not to wreck the place, and promised she would be back in 2 days. She also left a window open so the white wolf could come and go. As expected, Alma's performance was perfect. She stood out among all the participants and managed to win a spot in the Los Angeles Symphony Orchestra. Her lifelong dream had finally come true, but Alma couldn't feel happy, because now that meant she would no longer be able to look after the 2 little ones. The wolf pup still had his mother to care for him, so Alma began looking for a safe place for the lion cub. But trouble arrived sooner than expected. One day, while the white wolf was out hunting, she was spotted by staff from a wolf conservation center. They carefully raised their tranquilizer dart rifles, and, just like that, they took the white wolf away. When Alma returned home, the scene that greeted her left her stunned. The two little ones had turned the house upside down in a desperate search for food. Before Alma could even get upset, she noticed the white wolf was gone. In a panic, she ran out to look for her, but no matter how much she searched, the wolf was nowhere to be found. With no other choice, she returned home to feed the hungry cubs. The sudden disappearance of the wolf left Alma feeling helpless. She knew she couldn't balance her work with caring for the animals at the same time. So Alma made a difficult decision: to send them to the Wildlife Protection Agency, believing they would be happier there. Perhaps sensing what was about to happen, the two cubs quietly climbed onto Alma's bed that night, clinging to her, not wanting to let go. Alma's heart melted. She made a silent vow that she would never abandon them. So she gave up her job at the symphony orchestra and began dedicating herself full-time to raising them. With the white wolf gone, the two cubs saw Alma as their mother. She gave them new names. The wolf pup became Mozart, and the lion cub became Dreamer. Her unfulfilled musical dream would now live on through them. And Mozart truly seemed to have the talent of a musician. In fact, he began to play the piano like a master. While Alma's soft piano music filled the air, winter arrived quickly, covering the entire forest in snow. The two cubs had grown into large, powerful animals, chasing each other and playing in the snow. Alma prepared delicious dinners for them every night. Their appetites were enormous. Alma and her grandfather's friend Joe had to bring in large amounts of meat to keep them fed. Although he tried to be prepared, Joe was still a little frightened by their size. He asked Alma to check in with him every day via radio to make sure she was safe. As Mozart and Dreamer continued to grow, their territory also expanded. What Alma didn't realize was that danger was slowly approaching with the change of seasons. When the snow melted, the forest came back to life. One day, a mother and daughter arrived on the island to pick flowers. When Mozart and Dreamer saw them, they ran toward them at full speed. Alma panicked, fearing something would go wrong. She ran to stop them, but accidentally tripped over a rock and hit her head hard against the ground, falling unconscious. Hearing the noise, Mozart returned first. Seeing Alma lying on the ground, he became desperate. Like a child who knows he has done something wrong, he nudged her over and over, desperately trying to wake her up. Just then, Dreamer also arrived. The two circled Alma, calling out, hoping someone would come to help. But this was an isolated island. There was no one. Night fell, and they still refused to leave her side, guarding her without moving through the cold darkness. The next morning, Joe's voice came over the walkie-talkie. They had agreed to communicate daily, but that day he had called several times without getting an answer. Alarmed, he jumped into his boat and headed for the island. When he reached Alma's house and couldn't find her, he sailed around the island searching for her. Mozart saw him and let out a loud howl. Joe followed the sound and finally saw Alma on the ground, but with wolves and a lion nearby, he didn't dare approach. With no other choice, he called the police. Alma was rushed to the hospital. Doctors told her that on that freezing early spring night, if it hadn't been for Mozart and Dreamer keeping her warm, she probably wouldn't have survived. However, because of Joe's emergency call, Mozart was taken by the conservation team. Being a rare species, he was well protected, and there he was finally reunited with his mother. Dreamer wasn't so lucky. He was returned to the circus by the police. When he saw the trainer, Alan, Dreamer instantly became agitated, but there was no way to change his fate. Alan told his son Rafa that to truly tame the lion, they had to make him feel fear. Then, he whipped Dreamer violently with a leather lash. Meanwhile, Alma couldn't stop thinking about Mozart and Dreamer. She snuck out of the hospital and went to the police station to ask about them. But the officers not only ignored her plea, they told her that keeping wild animals was illegal. With no other choice, Alma decided to search for them on her own. She soon got in touch with Eli, the director of the Wolf Conservation Center. Eli told Alma that Mozart was very happy now. He had been reunited with his mother, and his natural instincts had been released. Relieved to hear this, Alma felt half of her burden lift. but she still couldn't stop worrying about Dreamer. Alma knew he had most likely been sent back to the circus, and she vowed to search every circus in the world if that's what it took to find him. That same day, the circus caravan passed near the Wolf Center. Mozart instantly recognized Dreamer's roar and cried out, calling to his friend. But the caravan showed no mercy and drove away without stopping. At that moment, a bold decision formed in Mozart's heart. He was going to find Dreamer and rescue him. That very night, Mozart dug a hole under the wire fence and escaped from the conservation center. After running a long distance, Mozart finally reached the circus grounds. He immediately began digging again and slipped into the circus with ease. But when he reached Dreamer's cage, he realized he had no way to open it. Still, Mozart didn't give up. He found a stick and tried to use it as a lever to pry the cage open. Seeing this, Dreamer quickly got up to help, but the fragile stick was no match for the solid metal bars. The noise drew Alan's attention. Alan was puzzled by Dreamer's agitation, so he opened the cage to see what was going on. In that instant, Mozart leaped out and knocked Alan to the ground. Then he and Dreamer escaped. Reunited at last, the two friends wrestled and played joyfully. It was time to go home. Following familiar scents through the forest, the wolf and the lion searched for their way back. When they got hungry, they snuck into a supermarket and had a grand feast. The supermarket security guard ran over after hearing the noise, but seeing the scene, he quickly hid in the security room and called the police. But Mozart and Dreamer were long gone. Meanwhile, Alma learned from Eli that Mozart had rescued Dreamer. Eli asked Alma to help with the search. Mozart still wore a tracking collar, so they were able to locate his position quickly. Now, the city's entire police force was searching for Mozart and Dreamer, and Alan arrived at the forest with a rifle. He soon saw Dreamer drinking by the river. Alan raised his rifle and aimed. Mozart reacted instantly. Without hesitation, he charged at Alan but was hit by a tranquilizer dart. A dose meant for Dreamer could be fatal for Mozart. To avoid further trouble, Alan ordered his son Rafa to throw away the tracking collar, but Rafa secretly hid it under his clothes. After they left, Dreamer returned to Mozart's side, calling to him in a panic. Eli and Alma used the tracker signal to locate Alan and Rafa, but Alan denied everything, claiming he had just found it by the side of the road. After they left, Rafa pretended to go to the bathroom and then quickly caught up with Eli and Alma in secret. He led them to the spot where the white wolf had once been captured, but Mozart was no longer there. Alma was growing more anxious. They had to find them before the police did. Thanks to Rafa's suggestion, Alma came up with an idea. She would drive through the forest while playing the music she used to practice. Sure enough, Dreamer heard the familiar melody and came running out. Seeing Alma, he was filled with joy and led her to the small wooden cabin in the forest. Mozart, delighted by the reunion, ran up and covered Alma in kisses, as if pouring out all the longing he had kept inside. Alma ran out and told everyone she had found Mozart, but at that moment, Alan arrived with a rifle, demanding they return Dreamer. To everyone's surprise, Rafa stood in front of him. At that moment, the police appeared. Alma quickly ran back to the cabin and led Mozart and Dreamer toward a hidden tunnel. By the time the police arrived, they had already escaped. They emerged from a hollow tree. On the other side of the lake was Alma's private island. As long as they managed to cross, they would be safe, because the police had no jurisdiction over the island. Alma was getting more anxious and urged Dreamer on, but even so, Dreamer walked resolutely toward the police because he wanted to buy time for Alma and Mozart to escape. With no other choice, Alma and Mozart had to leave first. When the gunshot rang out, Alma realized that Dreamer might have been hit. Holding back her grief, she returned to the island with Mozart. But Mozart, not knowing what had happened, stayed on the shore waiting for Dreamer without moving. Just then, a sudden rustle came from the nearby bushes. They looked closely and saw a familiar figure step out of the shadows. It was Dreamer. He had escaped the police. Mozart ran toward Dreamer, overwhelmed with joy. Everyone who witnessed this moment was filled with happiness. Finally, they could live forever on this island filled with love. True and sincere emotion can transcend species. Two animals that were supposed to be enemies ended up building the deepest brotherhood, and it all grew from love. All living things have a soul. From that moment on, life became a song, and emotions flowed like a river. The setting sun melted into an orange sea. The evening breeze surrendered to the warmth of love. As long as love lives in your heart, no mountain is too high, no sea too vast. Every place becomes a beautiful landscape. It is true for humans, and it is just as true for animals.